Good afternoon and welcome to the Bookum Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is another episode of Founders Talk Podcast, a podcast for book conversations with your favorite book industry leading founders. This episode is brought to you by Bookum, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookumapp.com. My guest today is the amazing Melissa Saavedra. Melissa is the founder of Steamy Lit. Steamy Lit provides women with romance books by authors of color and non-binary authors a platform to amplify their voice through their works while also empowering discourse around sexuality. She is also the founder of Steamy Lit Con and now a recent book store owner in South Florida. Melissa is a proud Latina, a Navy veteran, avid reader, and a dog mom. Melissa, welcome to the Founders Talk Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I would love to kind of get started by just the mindset and shift that resulted in you starting Steamy Lit and how the company has grown since starting. You started in 2020, correct?
Yeah, officially we launched February 2021.
2021.
But
Okay.
we started setting everything, or I say we, but it was me. I started setting everything up 2020, like the beginning or like middle of the pandemic. And yeah, so Steamy Lit started as really just like change I wanted to see. When I really started diving into romance, I realized how marketing affected the way that BIPOC books were seen and bought in the romance space and overall. And so the other portion to that was just like sexuality in a sense, and growing up in a Latina household, that we don't really talk about sex or sexuality or pleasure really. So I wanted to kind of do those two things, put a focus on embracing sexuality and diversity and romance in general. And a lot of that just came from like wanting to see change. 2020 was a year where like our country was really exposed for like the racist views that our country still upholds. And I really wanted to create a company that can help create change in the space that I was in. And yeah, I mean, it just started in my kitchen as a little like side project, and now it's kind of become its own thing.
Yeah, and again, congratulations on opening your new bookstore. That is just so awesome, and I hope everybody takes a trip down to see your store wherever you are. Because I can't wait to just drop in as well. I'm also curious to hear how your background a little bit in the Navy kind of played into some of how you talk about sexuality. What were moments that shaped your life as far as the Navy or even like you said, your Latina background?
Yeah, I think the Navy really taught me self-discipline in a way that I hadn't known before. So I guess I could say that in terms of like sex and sexuality, I feel like the Navy like actually took me back a little bit in that the Navy is a male-dominated space, and with that comes a lot of misogyny and sexism. And I hadn't realized how institutionalized I had been until like I got out of the Navy, and I was like, wow, like certain things are not okay, right? Um, then as far as like my background, just like being a Latina and having been born in Peru, the books really shaped my life, especially coming here at the age of 10. It was hard to adjust to a new country and a new culture and a new language, right? I was meeting family that I had never met before. And so books had always been kind of my escape. And my mom worked a ton. She worked like 3 jobs, but I always remember her making time to like take me to the library, and I would check out like 10, 15 books at a time, and probably more sometimes. And that would just really be like my escapism. And I caught myself doing that again in 2020, just like really reading a ton to like escape, and especially with romance, there's something so safe in having a happily ever after or a happily for now, and knowing like the outcome of the book. And also in terms of just like the books I was reading, right? Like I was reading books by Kennedy Ryan and
Yeah.
Adriana Herrera, and those focused so much on the happiness of Black and Brown people and not our trauma, and that was so important for me.
Yeah, and so speaking of that, how does your bookstore kind of weave that in, like the BIPOC founders, Black stories, just that whole experience when it comes to those romance stories as well?
Yeah, we try to make sure that we're highlighting those. We try to make sure that we are giving space in our bookshelves, to those stories, more than your traditional like bookstore would.
Yeah, and what was the process for you, like from like idea all the way to opening, and then a little talk a little bit about the grand opening because I saw the pictures. I thought they were so fun.
Thank you. Everyone says that I am like an action taker, and I guess at this point I can't really disagree with that. I Honestly, a lot of that has to do with like anxiety. Like when I have an idea, I get so anxious on like seeing it play out and like seeing it um come to like fruition, that I can't stop until it's done. And um there were plenty of hurdles. I When I started the Steambox and Steamy Lit, everything was like self-funded from like my savings, or just like stuff I put on credit cards type thing. um and obviously now we have grown to have like a store and staff, and I mean, it's been wonderful to see it. It's also been like so amazing to see like the support that the romance community has for like their own people, and just anyone trying to make change in the romance space. That has been really great to see. I was previously married, and my ex-spouse was in the Navy as well, but he stayed active duty, so we moved every 3 years. So when I started Steamy Lit, I was still traveling wherever, his orders took him. So I never saw Steamy Lit as a like even the potential of being a store, just because we moved around so much. So I thought I would always kind of stay in this online space. And then when we got divorced and I ended up moving back to South Florida, I was like, there's a lack of indie bookstores here. There are a few, but there's not a ton. There was definitely no romance bookstore, and there's definitely a community for it. And that's something that I always like yearn for. I always want to be surrounded and in community. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe there's space for something here. And I had never really let myself think about it because I moved around so much, but I had told my mom, and my mom was like, "Okay, we'll get through Steamy LitCon first, and then like let's start looking for space." And I really didn't have any plans to open until like later this year. 2023 was going to be kind of a year where I just like looked at real estate, saw what was in the market, and then went from there. And then like the perfect store just opened up. It was like right down the street from where I drop off all of our mail for the Steam box, and it just seemed like the perfect fit. And so yeah, it all happened very quickly and very fast. Like securing the space, and I was a little concerned just because Deerfield is a little bit more conservative. And so I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. So far, it's been really great. I think the only hurdles that we had were like actually trying to open. We had some issues with like zoning, and because of the nature of the books and it being romance, they wanted to classify us as an adult store,
Wow.
kind of like in the same vein, as a sex store or a sex club, a strip club. And I was like, no, we're not that fun. So we had to get some support from the American Booksellers Association. We had to retain just lawyers so that we can kind of get through that. But after that, it's been really smooth. And then the grand opening, my God, I did not expect the turnout that we had at all. So we had a soft opening in December, and that was like a steady, nice flow. We were busy, but nothing like super crazy. And oh my God, the grand opening, like we had people lining up at like, 30 minutes before the store even opened. We had lines all day. We probably had like around 500 people come through the whole day. And I mean, we had authors there. We had like lines for the authors that wrapped around the building. To say the least, a lot of our business neighbors were very happy with us. And they were also like, where did this come from? How did you get so many people here? And I was like, oh, I mean, like we've had a community for a long time, and they've showed up, and I mean, it was amazing. It was so great.
No, I love it. And I think so much of it is like you are very much an inspiration in the book space when it comes to like where you how you started the Steamy box all the way to the Steamy Lit on to now the bookstore. Just you have done a lot of different things and you have done them well at each level. So I think when people saw that you're opening a bookstore, they're like, oh, I'll make my way out there. Because I saw, yeah, I think even some people like I traveled 4, 5, 6 hours just to be there. So it was just
Yeah.
really cool to see that whole thing come about. I'm also interested in hearing how you are going to kind of incorporate your subscription box into the bookstore, how that works as well.
Yeah, so we can't fully incorporate it because we have like the whole adult toy thing.
Okay.
But we do have different levels to the Steam box where there's like a book only Steam box. There's also a just a no vibes box. So I'm working on setting up like a build your own box type station where you can pick 3 books, you can pick some self-care items, and you kind of build your own box. And that's how we would incorporate that. And always like we have our book club going on now, and so trying to incorporate some of those Steam box picks into the book club as well.
Yeah, and I kind of asked it earlier, but the reason why is so like when you look at like a Barnes and Noble or something, they they kind of changed their model with what type of books they put out. And now they kind of let it be more like how local stores are, where they pick the books and they put them out. But what's kind of has happened is that a lot of like some of the biggest book talk books are the ones that are positioned the most, while like indie books and different local artists don't really get to see their self in the store. That's why I kind of would love to hear how you talk about like that selection process and like what books get into to the store. Just so like other people can understand like, oh, this is a different way of how we select books and put them into our in our stores.
Yeah, it's a mixture of things, right? So a lot of it is like our staff will see books and our staff knows like what our mission is, right? And I think that that's what you need to be like clear about. What is your mission and what is your purpose and your intent? And so ours has always been to amplify underrepresented authors in publishing. That doesn't mean that we won't have, some of the best sellers in the store. We will, but we want to also create a space where like you are coming to pick up a book that your Barnes and Noble will probably not have. And the selection process is kind of as I said, it varies. Some of it is like our booksellers will like say, hey, I saw this, or this is coming out. Some of it will just be within like, we have Steamy LitCon. And so I kind of keep an eye out for the authors and what they're publishing. Other times it will be we have a form for indie BIPOC authors to submit if they want us to carry their book. And so through that we, look through that, we try to order a couple and see how they do in the store. There are some reservations with indie books being carried sometimes just because most of the time they're not returnable. Most of the time the percentage discount that you buy them at is less than you would for a trad book. But that's what we want to do. We want to create change and we want to amplify those books. And so trying to figure out like how we can best work with the author for that. We also have a form for like local authors so that they could submit their books. And again, we'll order a couple. I'm not telling you we're going to order, a whole box full of it, but we will order a couple and try to give those books some space to see how they do, and they've done well.
Yeah. In a world that's kind of become more virtual, I'm curious to hear how you think about creating in real life events, like especially with like when it came to Steamy Lit Con and now the bookstore. How do you create that culture and that community in real life?
Yeah, so something I really wanted to I guess alleviate was anxiety when it comes to events. I've attended a few book conventions, and something that I find often is how much anxiety is created sometimes at the events, whether it's to get wristbands for authors. And so we try to really kind of remove that by not announcing not having a you have to make a line to get a wristband type process. We try to just do it as, if the line gets too big, then we will deploy, wristbands. But before that, we really won't. We also don't say, like for Steamy Lit Con, something we do different is that we won't put out the list of authors who might have a wristband to it. And a lot of that is because I feel like that just starts creating a lot of anxiety of people wanting to get in line. So we kind of use a blanket, like if a line gets long, then we'll deploy wristbands. If it doesn't, we don't. I think the beauty of in-person events is that, well, and virtual events, right? Like you're able to see what's working, see what's not, and then kind of adjust accordingly. Again, like I said, I love being in community, and so Steamy Lit Con was so beautiful in that we had so many romance authors, romance readers, and just people part of the community that were all there to celebrate diversity in romance, and that was just amazing to see. And here for the store, really, we've kicked off a book club since December, and that's been really great, just being around people in South Florida who also read romance, and trying to translate that into events as well, and having the people in our community have this space to be safe, talk about sex, sexuality, and other topics that in Florida are not so welcomed, and you really just want to create that haven for our readers.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, and as a new bookstore owner, how do you see your role evolve as a creator in the space, like as a book content creator?
Yeah, so I feel like I've a little bit had to remove myself from the community in the I can still be a creator, but not in the way that I was before,
Yeah.
right? So before I was a book reviewer, I was a book influencer, and now I'm on the business side of it, and I realized that that is no longer the space for me, which um it was a little bit of a mourning process for me because, again, right, I came up through Bookstagram. That's where I really created my community. And it's not that I'm not necessarily there anymore, but I am not just a reader anymore. And so I think the beauty of the reader space in Bookstagram is that it is for readers, right? It's for readers to be able to critique books. It's for readers to be able to critique businesses and different practices. And so because of that, I think that that's not my space anymore per se, because now I am a business that gets critiqued. Now I am a business that puts out special editions that get critiqued, right? And so I want to make sure that the reader space remains that space for them. So I'm still there, but I'm not. And that's kind of what I've been trying to figure out since last year. How do I in what space do I belong in now as a creator and as a business owner? That's not, it's more than than just the reader space.
Yeah, and that's even when I was reaching out, I was hesitant to call this one Creator Talk podcast because I wanted to really get into you as a founder and what you've been able to accomplish. And so that's why I was like, I think this is more like a founder's conversation. But with that, like, what is your kind of advice for other book content creators in the space that say that I want to take that next step in from being a book content creator to like I want to own companies or anything like that? What's your advice on that
Community. Um,
community?
like that, I can't. put enough emphasis, and I think that this is with any businesses, like relationships, creating relationships and cultivating relationships is probably um the biggest thing, and being genuine in those relationships, right? Like, don't wait to reach out to someone until you need something from them. Like, create those relationships, cultivate those conversations, so that when you are in a space where you want to launch a business, your community will be there to support you, because like you have been in community with them. I think that's so important, and I think it's something that we're not doing enough of right now.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about books. I'm interested in saying like what values are non-negotiable for you in like a romance book?
I mean, obviously a romance book has to have a happy ending, or a happily for now, happily ever after. Aside from that, really, I I won't say I love it all. Like pregnancy tropes um and like secret baby tropes are not my favorite. But sometimes they're done really well. And anyway, aside from that, everything's a fair game for me, as long as there's nothing that is hurtful to another community, then
Yeah. And then what's your go-to trope in romance books?
oh, like second chance, best friends to lovers, like loved you since forever. And I know that that's like three tropes individually, but when they are all combined, it's like the perfect mix for me. I love to cry, and I feel like those are the types of books that always make me cry.
No, they'll get you. They'll get you for sure. What impact do you hope Steamy Lit will have on diversity and in the romance genre?
Yeah, I hope that we can start shifting those numbers, right? I don't remember off the top of my head what the last report said, but I think we're still in like the high 70s of published authors are white. And so um I hope that we can start creating some change in that space, and that readers want and love reading diverse, and that we need to see that translated on what is getting published.
Yeah. Could you see yourself ever help publishing a book or wanting to publish in that space as well?
Um, like me myself write a book or publish a
Or,
book?
like publish like from your company or anything like that?
I would love to. It's one of my I don't have long-term goals per se. I feel like my goals are always more on the like short side, and then I'm like, okay, let's do it. It's done. Okay, next thing. But becoming my own publisher is one of my long terms.
Yeah, I can see it for you. I can definitely see it. Um, but before we get out here, I just would love to know what would you like to see more of in the book world?
Oh, what would I like to see more of in the book world? Um, BIPOC stories that are focused on happiness and not our trauma. And there's nothing wrong with, like there's also something beautiful in reading about like our trauma and the things that we overcome as Black and brown people. But I think that there is also something special, especially for me, being able to see happiness and friendships and found family and all of the good things that also happen to us. And I just hope that we can see more of that written by BIPOC authors. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what would you like to see least from the book world?
Uh, well, I would like to see less authors and publishers that are being performative and hurtful to communities. And I think it's okay to an extent, right? Like you make a mistake, you're learning and unlearning, right? As we all are, but taking accountability and being able to make shifts and address that, and not just like silence people, I think I would love to see less of.
Yeah. And then but like last thing, I didn't no, I don't know if we got really into the Steamy Lit Con. So if you wanted to share about it and then let everybody know anything else that you're up to, how it came about, some of the stories, anything exciting that happened.
Yeah, Steamy Lit Con came from the same place of starting Steamy Lit. Like, I had gone to book conventions, and the majority of it was like catered to white readers. It was for white authors. And so I really wanted to create a place where BIPOC authors and BIPOC readers really felt safe and were there like as a forethought, not an afterthought. And so really that's where that Steamy LitCon came about. And then I talked to Adriana Herrera when I was like still like it was just kind of a thought, and she was like, if you do it, like I'll support you. And I think I just needed to hear that from someone who had been in the space for years, who was such a great author, and that someone like that could believe in what I was doing. And so that's kind of how it took off. And yeah, we're going on our second year now. We have about 200 authors coming, about 10 narrators, and we have about 1,200 tickets sold. We are sold out right now, but um yeah, it's been wonderful. Last year was really great. Like any event that we could do better. There's certain things that that we want to do better, and we want to be more intentional about in the crafting of our panels and the folks that we are amplifying. But I mean, it was so wonderful. It was really great to be in a space where all the people there had the same thought of like diversity and romance is so important, and we want to make sure that like that we're portraying that. And so yeah, we will do 2025 in Anaheim, California as well. We're not sure where we're going 2026. We might stay in Anaheim. We might go down to San Diego. We're not sure yet.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa, for talking with us today. Definitely gotta let us know some really good Peruvian food on the way out, or what's a good restaurant or anything that you suggest.
Ooh, okay. Well, it depends where you're at, but if you're in South Florida, God, there's so many. But I really love let me see. There's a restaurant called Pucara that's down here. There's also a restaurant, I don't know the name of it, but it's on 137th and 8th in Miami.
Okay,
And
cool.
it's like next to a Publix, and it's a little small hole in the wall, but it has the best Peruvian food in South Florida. And if you're in San Diego, there is a place called the Latin Chef, and they are in Liberty Station. They're really great too.
Perfect. Yeah, I love Miami, so I'll make sure to check that place out. Thank you so much again, Melissa. Have a great rest of your day.
Of course. Thank you. Have a good day.